don't see the on air. There we go. We're just going to let Russ come back. Oh, there he is. Hi, Russ.
Jimmy Chonga.
Russell J. Clay at Twitter. Yes. All right, let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Dynasty Tradecast. As always, I'm your host, Eric Bertzloff, better known on Twitter as @DynastyTrades. See, Nathan, it's been 2 times in a row that I'm allowed to say this now. As always, it's all good. This week's episode brought to you by RotoQL. I'm joined pretty much as always by Nathan. Nathan's like the rock of the show, and we have a special guest today, Nathan.
Yeah, if we had like someone who we cheated on Dan with, it'd always be Russell.
Yeah, so you're basically saying Russell J. Clay is the mistress of the Dynasty Tradecast, is what you're saying?
Yes. Whenever one of the hosts isn't treating me right, I give Russell a little call.
Yeah, he's like one of your old flings too. You guys had the Dynasty dudes. This all adds up.
Yeah.
He's not wearing sleeves right now. Man, what's up, Russell J. Clay?
One day I'm gonna show up with a ring, and it's gonna get awkward. Things are good. Hey, no complaints. The football season has started, and here we go, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, week 2 was a bit nuts, which was cool. So that was like watching the points rack up was pretty sweet. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that today. And not really in any particular order. We're just going to kind of dive down the things that happen and talk dynasty value of players and things that are happening, give our takes on them, and then we'll probably wrap up the show. I don't know if that's what we'll do or not.
Yeah,
all right,
that's
fine.
That's what we're going to do.
That's what we'll do. Okay. All right. Well, before we get into the show, quick reminder that you can support the RotoViz radio network and our 10 shows per week on Patreon. By doing so, you'll gain access to RotoViz Live, our weekly Sunday morning video show answering all of your fantasy questions. Patronships start at just $5 per month and provide you with exclusive access to RotoViz Live. That's 4 shows per month on top of 40 podcasts for $5. Become a RotoViz patron today to join an exclusive community of listeners, access premium content, and do your part in helping support the network and continue to produce helping us to produce high quality, industry leading programming.
Speaking of exclusives, as a loyal podcast listener, you can get 30% off a RotoViz NFL Pass right now. It's available through the NFL Podcast homepage, rotoviz.com/podcast. The season is almost here. No, the season's here. What are you doing, Nathan? The season is all.
It's a meltdown. It's a meltdown.
This is bad. The season is here. Make sure you're ready. Gain limited access to all of our NFL content so you get amazing value and support the podcast network. Once again, that's rotoviz.com/podcast.
Okay.
I was trying to keep up the like porn sounding voice for like the entire time, and then I messed that up and it all went into shambles.
I'm leaving this in the show.
Good.
Okay.
If you've been tracking Nathan's Snapchat,
which I have for the record.
Sunday mornings, he was talking about doing a Nate Dogg minute, and so I just got off the phone with corporate, and based on that ad read, we're gonna cut the Nate Dogg minute programming. So,
what about Nate Dogg walks the dog? Is that green lighted or no?
Nathan Powell on Snapchat and Powell FF. If you want to hear him say "kadoosh," look into your camera and give. Also, fun fact: I would probably have put money on you being intoxicated while you were doing that.
No, I was very sober, very sober, very bored.
That the last part you could definitely tell. So that's NPowell FF on Twitter and on Snapchat. So go out there and get it, ladies. Go out there and get it. Okay, you're gonna have like 40 new followers. That's gonna be awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into it and talk about a name that we literally can't keep off of our tongues here at the Dynasty Tradecast. And honestly, Dynasty Twitter can't quit him either. And that's Josh Gordon going to the New England Patriots, as I'm pretty sure everybody on Twitter mocked him too.
You know what, Eric? I'm going to look at the positive side of things. We've mocked our our consistent talk of the Browns pretty much for the last like 6 months on the Tradecast. We don't go an episode without talking about the Browns. But now that they don't have Josh Gordon and they don't have Corey Coleman, there is a much more likely events through a podcast that we don't talk about them. Because those are 2 names that we talk about pretty much every episode. So now that they're both not on the Browns, we might start not talking about the Browns. So that's the way I'm looking at it is less Brown stock.
Okay, why don't we try some actual insight now? And I'll just kick to Russ as to what this does for dynasty value. I believe Nathan made a tweet that this is, and I'm quoting here, the 14th buying window or selling window for Josh Gordon's. For the love of God, go out there and trade him.
I don't understand what's going on. It's like he just got basically cut from a team. It's been 5 years. And it's like Twitter today was all roses.
Yeah.
Like it was all optimism. There was there were a few naysayers in there that got pitchforked to death. I didn't throw out any tweets, thankfully. But it's just like, I get it. Like he's uber talented, but man, we got such a big sample. Like we got to break up with this boyfriend, man. This is too many times.
Okay, I'll just say I'm seeing on my timeline pretty regularly a 2019 first for Gordon deal getting done, and that going on the Gordon side of the Twitter poll. Go do it. Just get a first for him. Get out. You don't need to be on this roller coaster. He's bad for you, girl, is I guess what I'd say. He's no good for you. Yeah, you can do better. Get yourself a real man like Jarvis Landry.
Right. and you know what? Like that 2019 first, that's like a win. Like
that's a win. He was literally worthless. That's like a year. Like 4 months ago, he was worthless.
Just take that settlement, move on, get a new condo, out by the coast or something. Start.
All right. Yes. Okay. So we're all of the mindset that this is the appropriate play to happen. There is. I feel like I've seen more pictures of Randy Moss in a Patriots uniform today on Twitter than I've ever seen. There's like a non-zero chance that we're all wrong and he's actually Randy Moss. But you better believe that this report of him like showing up like groggy at camp and them cutting him because of it, he's going to have like a drug test delivered to his house like yesterday. The NFL is going to be like, random drug test time for you, Josh Gordon.
All right, I'll just continue to not talk about Josh Gordon because I don't care about him. And I'll talk about Corey Coleman. Russell, I think that this may be the week where I cut all my Corey Coleman shares.
This is the end, my friend.
Is this really that point? I don't know that I'm ready yet.
It's not the end, but it's to the point where he's on your roster and you're just sad every time you look at him. And
which is why I want to cut him. I don't want to see it anymore.
But okay, what about this? He's got name recognition. He's still on the Patriots. You can probably
no, he's not on the Patriots. He got cut.
Oh, did he? Okay, well, breaking news for me. In a corresponding move, they've cut Corey Coleman. Okay, then yeah, R.I.P. I'm sorry.
And like you click on his name and you're like, oh yeah, 15th overall pick, first rounder. Oh wow. Oh, look at that athletic profile. Oh, he's been cut 3 times in one off season.
All right, well let's go back in time 2 years ago right now, and let's put ourselves in that mindset. If I go back in time and tell Dynasty Twitter that Corey Coleman's going to be out of the league and Josh Gordon is still going to be a thing that people he's still going to be worth a first, like I feel like it would explode. It would explode.
Oh, I would have no idea.
A kid. And also Corey Coleman's cut.
On the Patriots.
Yep, on the Patriots. And they have nobody. They've got nobody. And Corey Coleman still can't make the roster. Oh, that's freaking brutal. But yeah, I agree with you, Nathan. I think it's time. And I have a lot of Corey Coleman shares myself. So maybe we should just play like sad funeral music for him, because where did this go wrong? I'm not really sure, but wow, did it go south quickly.
I think it's more of the Sarah McLachlan sad puppy commercial where it's like, will somebody please adopt Corey Coleman, please?
Okay, let's move on. All right, so Josh Gordon, worth a first right now. Go get the first. To surmise, Corey Coleman, RIP on your roster. Go pick up Philip Lindsay if he's available. He's not.
What does that have to do with Corey Coleman?
What? Which thing?
Philip Lindsay.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, literally add anyone. Go add Jarius Wright over Corey Coleman.
Add anyone.
Add anyone. Jarius Wright might actually be a person you could add, which is, again, very, very. If I told you Jarius Wright was in the league longer than Corey Coleman years ago, you wouldn't believe me. Oh, R.I.P. Okay, let's move on because we could talk about this all day. And let's talk about Joe Mixon. Got injured. Looks like he's out. He's getting a cleanup surgery. Looks like he's out for 2 to 4 weeks. Probably pushing more towards that 4-week side of things. Has looked insanely good. Bell cow, kind of a fluke injury, really. I mean, I don't think this really dings him for being like can't be a bell cow type of thing. So, I guess I'll kick to Nathan first. What are you doing with Mixon? Are you just trying to buy at this point if somebody's low on him?
I'm a man with very, very little Joe Mixon, maybe zero Joe Mixon, in fact. And I was just fading him on the concept of, oh, Gio Bernard's a talented back. Oh, do we even know Joe Mixon's any good? Well, in week 1, we saw Joe Mixon is really freaking good at the running back position.
Yes, we did.
And so if this injury of 2 to 4 weeks is giving any pause to any dynasty owners, maybe someone who's in like super win now mode and can't afford to lose 2 regular season games, go out and throw a feeler, throw out, a veteran running back in a first or something along those lines. Yep. Maybe even a Phillip Lindsay in a first. And, they think, oh, and we get those points now with Phillip Lindsay. I think that, it's not likely that someone's trying to bail on Mixon just because of this injury, but it's at least worth a shot. Whereas, like, if this injury didn't happen, he'd be worth basically the 101 right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like right now the person that holds Mixon is going to be a person who believed in him from the get-go and kind of like sifted through all this anti-hype of him coming in. Well, and I don't know, coming into this season is necessarily the case, but there was a point in the offseason where like he was a pretty clear sell. I think you're gonna have a guy that's just been holding on to him for the long haul and isn't gonna sell here. But I mean, I'm with Nathan. Like, go out and shop for him. I mean, the first plus another running back is probably a good call. I'm like trying to think of a good running back to pair other than Phillip Lindsay because that's like we keep mentioning that name over and over again. But all right, let's just throw to Russ. What are your thoughts, Russ?
Yeah, buy if you can. I think the cat's already out of the bag though. And generally speaking, people who drafted Mixon were really high on him in rookie drafts. So if he's on the roster and they saw that week 1, that's going to be, trouble. But
yeah, if he had tanked week 1, I feel like you could have gone out and bought him for sure. You'd have been like, ooh, Gio's definitely going to take his job.
Right.
So, okay. Another injury in the running back cores of the NFL, and that is Devonta Freeman is injured. And it was the Tevin Coleman show this weekend, which was kind of exciting. If you're a Tevin Coleman truther, like I don't know that I'm necessarily a truther, but definitely a guy who's got far more Coleman than I do Freeman. I was pretty happy with that outcome. But not Freeman being injured for the record, but just like the fact that Coleman looked pretty good in a bell cow role. What are we doing with Freeman? I guess I'll just start. I don't have Freeman anywhere, so I've kind of always thought he was overhyped, and I honestly missed the bandwagon during the rookie draft of actually drafting the dude pretty cheap. So didn't end up getting him anywhere, but I still don't think I'm like I think I'm still of the same camp. Like I'm not sad I don't have any shares of him.
That was the same path for me. I missed that huge buy window when he was uber cheap, and then he hasn't been overvalued since. I'd say he's been correctly valued, I guess.
Yep, I agree. But buying him didn't make much sense. It's like
buying him didn't make much sense, and now he's 26. All that focus goes on Le'Veon with the age and sort of the touches. Freeman has quite a few touches on his ledger now as well. So
yep.
Obviously, I think he'll be fine long term, but this could be the point where we start to worry about him in maybe a feature role going forward.
Yeah, I think that throughout the last few years, Freeman has been the favorite of the Falcons. If they're going to look at a guy, okay, who are we going to give the feature role to? And it's been Freeman. But I think that as they see Freeman out and they see Tevin Coleman on a contract year and him having success while Freeman's out, I think that even when Freeman comes back, they might just say, okay, let's milk Coleman for all he's worth because he's gone after this year. And we have Freeman on the long-term deal. So, I mean, he does have the injury history with concussions. And honestly, his timeline right now with his knee is uncertain, according to the latest report. So, yeah, I would definitely be wary of Freeman right now in the short term. And Tevin Coleman, it's not really a time to buy, but I think that he's going to have a huge next 3, 4, 5 weeks.
Yeah, and yeah, if you're in for redraft purposes and even in dynasty, like he's gonna just start him. He'll do great. But I mean, does the injury open up a buy window for Freeman? Maybe it's time for people like Russell and I to get on the bandwagon finally and get a share now. Because I feel you kind of feel on Twitter at least like the room kind of deflating around Freeman's value right now.
That's a fair take. I actually do think, especially if someone's in a win now, that's a win now asset. So if someone is kind of losing that, maybe they'd be willing to swap a slightly lesser piece that can be startable every week. So
well, what is his valuation right now in your eyes? Like, I mean, I would think a first is probably enough to get the deal done right now.
Well, no, but you're not trading a pick because the person who's dealing Freeman is doing so to get points today.
Okay, well, or a first equivalent. Trying to think of what that would be. Tevin Coleman.
Like, so how far away is he from Dion Lewis plus a pretty decent rookie pick? Like,
I mean, I think it'd be Dion Lewis in the late first for Freeman.
Okay,
that was miles apart this offseason. I mean, that's come a long ways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a conundrum, though, because the team that's trying to buy Freeman is a win-now asset, but also you're trading for a win-now asset, but it's an asset that's not going to score you points for at least a few weeks. So it is a bit of a question there.
Well, I mean, if you're buying him, in theory, you either have the depth that you can handle it, or you either have depth to handle it, or you're not a team that's contending you're buying him for his future role and cashing in on somebody panicking. But I mean, let's think through this. Like, Jordan Howard or Freeman?
Howard.
And I don't even like Howard, but at this point.
Right. But I mean, okay, so you would not want the Freeman side of that deal. What about Royce Freeman?
Devonta.
I agree with that.
Freeman.
What about Darius Guy? Well, the Darius Guys won't be a piece of trade.
So what about like Derrick Henry? We take Freeman pretty easily.
I would take Freeman pretty easily. But
I
mean, if Henry had blown up these first 2 weeks, I think that there would be a serious argument. Well, first off, his value would have just skyrocketed because everybody freaking loves Derrick Henry. But if he exploded on this, I mean, I think you could have gotten out from Henry in that particular instance. Yeah. But I mean, like looking at ADP, I mean, Tevin Coleman's not that far away, and you could be like, look, dude, it's an even switch. They're going to have the same amount of points. Even when he gets back, it's still like fine because they would have split the carries anyways. Because I mean, are you guys for sure Freeman in the Coleman deal there?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I think I'm pretty positive I'd rather have Devonta than Tevin.
I'm already looking at next offseason for Coleman.
But they're both going to skyrocket. It's not just going to be Tevin because he's going to get his own starter role. It's going to be Devonta because Ito Smith is not the same running back as Tevin Coleman is. Yeah. He's going to go from splitting a backfield to having the 80% share of a backfield.
I mean, you're also assuming they don't draft anybody next year, which I think is a bit of a leap. They're just like, Ito Smith's good enough to be the backup here.
I agree. I'm just saying, look at what happened to Jarek. And like Tevin is way, way more accomplished than Jarek was this time last year. Mm-hmm. And if he goes to any type of starting role in free agency, the hype is going to be so large.
Yeah, he goes to like the Bucks. Like a team that needs a running back.
And I'll just sell. But I'm looking at that as a pretty interesting sell high window.
Okay. I mean, I tend to agree. I think that's like, maybe that's the Tevin window right there. Because I mean, if he looks great this season and Freeman's in and out of the lineup all season, it's going to be, the value is going to spike there for Coleman. He might actually pass Freeman on ADP by the time we're done with the season, because everybody loves to have the player that's productive this year because we're not playing Dynasty, apparently, which goes on multiple years. Okay, let's move on.
No, Eric, I got this transition.
Go ahead.
All right, Eric, Russell and I, we have a question for you. So we have a Dynasty team. It's probably going to be 3-1 this after the first 2 weeks in a doubleheader week. We have both Royce Freeman and we have Phillip Lindsay. Should we sell Philip Lindsay?
Sell him? I mean, no, probably not. I don't think I'd sell him.
Well, no, I mean, I was hoping to get some Philip Lindsay conversation going on. That's what I was using as the jumping point.
No,
Russell and I were contemplating selling him on Saturday, and they were like, "Well, what if he like blows up Sunday? So we shouldn't sell him." And then he didn't blow up, but like he had a pretty good game. So
well, he's out touching Freeman right now, and then he's like, then there's all this like hot hand talk coming out of Denver right now, like basically saying, well, we're going to continue to ride Lindsay, and we'll let Freeman go, which Freeman hasn't looked bad. I mean, and the Broncos offense is not exactly prolific either. They look pretty meh, slash a little bit less than meh. And I mean, I don't know. I think Lindsay kind of came out of nowhere. He talked about it last week, but that's 2 productive weeks at this point. I mean, he's gaining value. What is he worth now? Probably a second.
Yeah, and so before this weekend, when it was only 1 week, it was kind of like, well, maybe he's a sell high and we can get like some decent value for him. But seems like he's going to be a guy there this year, you know, and
he's as much of a rookie as Freeman is. Now, granted, they don't have any draft capital in him, but like this could be a 1-2 punch for the next 3 years. There's no reason that can't happen. Because Lord knows they've needed extra running backs on that team since like no Sean Moreno time, like years ago.
Yeah, so
really, it's dump Devontae Booker. He's pretty much just
yes, trash heap.
Yes, that's the easy advice. But I would say that Lindsay, he becomes a bit of a risky sell because he hasn't gained the value to where like he can have any sort of like a slam dunk, acceptance. So I guess, Eric, what would be the value point where you're like, okay, I'm willing to take the risk that Lindsay continues to play this well or even plays it even better than he has early on in the season? What would be that value that you'd be like, okay, I'm willing to stomach that risk?
As far as like saying no thank you or selling him?
No, as far as
selling him, and I just picked him up off waivers in a league, and I would I don't know. The sicko in me wants to wait till he's worth a first, but I'm not sure he ever really gets to that point. And I mean, do you guys disagree he's worth about a second right now?
Yeah, I think that's
I think that if I'm going to, and I genuinely do think that selling him right now is a bit of a risk. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to be doing like Lindsay and trying to throw on stuff to eventually get to, even if it's like a locked in guaranteed 112, I'm like throwing stuff on top of Lindsay to trying to get to that 112.
And Lindsay might be the type of player that you could upgrade at quarterback with pretty good. That's kind of the deal that comes to mind for me is like his valuation is right there at like, a top 10 quarterback and just selling him and upgrading your team in that way. Because Lord knows your team was probably set already if you were competing without Lindsay off your waiver wire and you were expecting to get literally nothing off of him without an injury. And, out of left field, he's suddenly carrying more than Royce Freeman, which no one saw happening. So I don't know. That's the kind of deal that comes to mind for me. But a second right now, I tend to agree. I think I would look at that trade offer for a long time. And I would probably ultimately say I'd need a little bit of a sweetener on top of it.
Fair.
All right, let's ad read.
All right, very good. All right, well, let me tell you about our wonderful sponsor who, once again, is sponsoring the show, and that is RotoQL. So do you want an unfair advantage to dominate your fantasy football league? Well, look no further and download SquadQL, the only mobile app you need to crush your friends and rivals this year. SquadQL recommends the best starting lineup for you each week based on your starters, bench players, and free agency pool. You may ask, how does SquadQL actually do this? The app connects directly to Yahoo, ESPN, and CBS leagues, pulling in your actual roster and your league scoring settings. SquadQL provides waiver and trade recommendations. Plus, the app gives you player rankings each week, and it's all based on your league's particular settings. SquadQL truly is the go-to app for fantasy football season. Head to squadql.com to download SquadQL, your all-in-one fantasy football manager. SquadQL is brought to you by the creators of RotoQL, the leading daily fantasy lineup optimizer trusted by over 100,000 DFS players. You can also download RotoQL for free for both Apple and Android. So go check out our sponsor, RotoQL, and we thank them again for sponsoring the show. Okay. Go ahead, Nathan.
All right, let's transition to some David Johnson talk. Personally, I'd like to look back at the prediction episode that Dan and I did duo without Eric. And I predicted that the Arizona Cardinals would have the first pick in the NFL draft. And that looks like a pretty good – I mean, the Bills have been bad, but the Cardinals have been absolutely atrocious. They can't even figure out how to use David Johnson correctly. So is this a buy low opportunity for David Johnson? Or are the Cardinals so bad that, like, you don't really see him being like a RB1 or even like a mid RB2 this season, start with Russell?
This looks exactly like Todd Gurley 2016 to me. And I think you just got to ride it out if you're an owner. I think we wait till a few more weeks to buy because there's still a lot of 2015 David or 2016 David Johnson in people's brains. But if they get a 5 or 6 week sample of this, they'll be willing to sell, and I'll jump in. But it could be a rough whole year. You know, you could be waiting until next year until things get better. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's brutal, but I mean, this is again another time I'll point at. We're playing Dynasty here. Like, are we doubting David Johnson's talent? Nobody's doing that. That's not what's happening. Like, he is in a terrible scheme that seems hell-bent on not giving him the football. You know, he can catch the football, right? Like, what is going on?
Well, he can catch the football very well.
Yes, it's unbelievable. like he literally shouldn't ever put up 5 points because his floor is freaking 12 because he catches 7 balls every game if you're using him right. So, I mean, yeah, it's a buy low. If somebody's freaking out, and maybe I'll own a bunch of David Johnson by the end of the season because this doesn't spook me at all. And maybe, like, if you do have a team that's not contending, maybe now's the time to get David Johnson and try to just purchase him. See if you're not contending, see if you can, like, give up a first for him. That would, even if it's the 101 for David Johnson will be fine. That's fine. And I mean, that's like the worst case scenario. So, yeah, I mean, this just reeks of like it's the Todd Gurley situation. It's like Andy Reid using Jamal Charles. It's like all these terrible situations where like the talented running backs in their prime are just getting poo-pooed on. I was going to use a different word, but I'll say poo-pooed here. So it's insanely frustrating, especially somebody who owns David Johnson in so many places. But I'm not panicking, but I might get to a point where I'm not starting him this season, which is absolutely ridiculous that like Philip Lindsay is outscoring David Johnson by double the points is insane.
Yeah, it's blasphemy, really.
So I guess I'll turn to this. Russell, do you think that if Rosen comes in week 4, week 5, will that be any sort of savior, or is that just offense, just a lost cause, purely Todd Gurley 2016?
At this stage, especially with Larry Fitzgerald going out with that hamstring last week, just send Sam Bradford out and have him do what he does best, which is just get absolutely destroyed on bad teams and run this year how it is and don't expose your young quarterback to it. That's how I'm looking at it. And I'm sure they're thinking about that now, you know.
Well, I'm sure they're going to do the exact opposite and put him out there. Like, immediately.
That's fair.
Like, I mean, this is just somebody gets fired territory here. Like, this might not even go on all year because if they look this bad all year, like people are getting fired. So, and then they're going to create an entirely new scheme. Like the Bengals last year, similar thing. Like they look so atrocious and then fired their OC and it turned around. What was that, week 6 or so? That wouldn't shock me at all if that ended up happening here.
Right.
All right, let's do a little bit of this or that real quick. McCaffrey or David Johnson? Let's in these scenarios, let's assume you're a strong playoff contender. McCaffrey or David Johnson?
If I'm a strong contender, I guess McCaffrey, but that's disgusting.
Oh, don't ask me this question because I know what I have to say. I have to say McCaffrey.
Yeah, I also say McCaffrey.
I got 14 receptions.
So wait, so what does that mean for? Did David Johnson's value just fall out of like the first round of startups, or did McCaffrey's value just jump to like the 5th pick of startups? Which one happened?
It's both, and it's just evidence of how much a lost year at the running back position, particularly a running back who came in at an older age. You can't have a lost year at running back because that's like a 5th of your career. So that's why you put a Christian McCaffrey over David Johnson. And then the other two I would say were Dalvin Cook and Kareem Hunt. Would you take either of those guys over David Johnson?
I'm
not sure I would, but
I would take David Johnson over Dalvin.
Yeah.
Dalvin, and then Kareem Hunt hadn't been any.
No. I was saying, okay. I'm saying I'd rather have DJ over those guys too, but I'm saying I do think it's a discussion.
It is, but Kareem started off so poor in his own right, so it's like that. Unfortunately, is like comparing apples to apples, where both have been terrible and both are going to fall accordingly, like because of it. So that's nuts. If you're telling me David Johnson's out of the first round of startups in Dynasty, that means the value is there in my eyes. That means that people are overreacting. And I think it might be true. I think that if you did a startup right now, you'd see him go like 203, and then like that would be unbelievable.
All right, let's move on to the running back position. All right, we were talking running backs. Let's talk about the Ravens running backs. We have Alex Collins, who has been getting the bulk of the carries, but Javorius Buck Allen has been getting the receiving work as well as the goal line work. Does this worry you if you're trying to start Collins on a weekly basis, Eric? Are you trying to buy Buck Allen maybe as a bye-week starter? What do you think of this backfield?
Yeah, somebody actively trying to start him week to week. I can say firsthand this hasn't been feeling very good with Collins. Collins is kind of sticking around his floor is what I would kind of consider where he's at right now. And no, I don't know that I want any of the pass catchers there. I think I'll just ride out the Collins wave. He doesn't look bad, to be fair. He just doesn't look like he's just not churning out the yards necessary and not getting the fantasy points or touchdowns, which is really the most important part of this whole thing. So that's probably where I was saying I would probably stand pat on Collins because nobody's going to pay you a fortune for him right now. And then I'll just steer clear of the other running backs there.
Definitely a hold, but it's gonna looking like it's gonna set up to be a miserable year.
Yep,
it's pretty much how that Baltimore running back situation is gonna figure itself out. So
I mean, he only got 9. Like this game on Thursday, they got stuck so deep in that game that like they only like the running backs didn't even get any carries. You had Collins getting 9 carries, Allen getting 6. So the game script there. I think we're overreacting, and the game script is kind of telling a different story. But Alex Collins is also catching footballs too. And this game had 3 catches for 50 yards. So this game I probably would just throw this game out the window because the Bengals really were up 21-0, like coming out of the first quarter, and that makes Alex Collins play a different game altogether.
Right.
Yeah, for me, normally in the scenario, I would be going out to buy Collins, but the goal line usage for Buck Allen scares the death out of me. Where like I just don't think the upside is there with Collins anymore if he's not going to get the goal line work. So, I mean, I'm not going out and trying to desperately sell Collins for like a late second or anything like that. But I think that it's hard to really count on him as like an RB2, which I'm guessing what many people were thinking as we were entering August, September. All right, let's move on to the Lions wide receivers. This is put our hand. I think most of the fantasy community can put our hand up. Kenny Golladay might be the wide receiver 1 there. Sooner rather than later. He's the wide receiver 14 in PPR through 2 weeks. So Russell, if I said you have to go buy Kenny Golladay, what is the absolute highest price you would pay?
If we're talking in rookie draft terms, I'd say 108, 109.
I don't think you're getting him then.
Really? You don't?
No, I think you have to enter like the 106, 105.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, doggy. I think he looks great. He does. So if you have him, you're winning. I don't know if I'd sell him though. I guess that
I know. I mean,
saying that. I guess that makes sense why you're saying that because I'd probably want way more on top if I was going to sell him right now.
I mean, I had a couple offers in my inbox, have a Golladay, a couple places that people were trying to buy. I turned down Chris Hogan for him, which wasn't particularly difficult, but I forget what the other offer was, but they were all mildly enticing. Might have taken them prior to week 1, but yeah, he looks to be the guy, and as quickly vaulted Jones and Tate, and he's looked the part. So I mean, the getting 12 targets in week 2 and 9 in week 1. I mean, yeah, Stafford continues to look for him. And even in a week where Stafford just got destroyed in that week 1, that, you know, he still was productive. And he missed the ball in the end zone in week 1. So no, I think Golladay is the real deal. And I think, Nathan, your valuation's spot on. I think it's got to be a mid to early-ish first for somebody to move off of him. Because as an owner of him, you got to overpay for him because he looks like he's coming on, and I'm not passing on a young wide receiver who seems to be the real deal.
Yeah, the way I saw that wide receiving core entering the year, I thought that would be a high-volume passing offense because the running backs aren't any good. But I did think that Golladay would struggle with week-to-week consistency just because the targets wouldn't be there because most of the targets are going to Tate and Jones. And it looks like Golladay is kind of eating up that Jones role to where Jones is going to get the scraps that I thought Golladay would get, and now Golladay is getting that Jones role. So I think Tate's obviously going to be the high-volume target guy, the guy to pick up first downs. But when it comes to the deep threat, when it comes to the red zone, I think Golladay is the man for Detroit from now on.
Yeah, that's kind of nuts. I mean, if we're looking, Golladay is going to leap up in valuation because, I mean, looks like he was going in like the 8th round of startups, and that is not going to continue to happen. I think McDowell said that he was like wide receiver 38 in the latest ADP, and he's probably going to be like wide receiver 24, 25. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the most recent ADP, there's some insane people in front of it. Keelan Cole's in front of him, who's actually looked insane, but like there's a couple guys in front of him. Ronald Jones is ahead of him. Womp, womp. Robbie Anderson. So no, there's definitely some interesting names ahead of him that I would rather have. But yeah, that's crazy. I mean, if he keeps this up, if he has another week of it, I mean, this is just going to be hype train time. It's going to go bananas. So would you guys go out and buy if you had a late first right now? Like, what would you?
I mean, for a late first, yeah. But I don't think that I can't stomach paying a 105 type price tag.
Sure.
Like I said, I think I would legitimately pay 108, 109 right now. I would. Yeah. I don't know who that translates into for Dynasty, like actual players, but pretty decent. Decent player I'd give up right now for sure.
I mean, I think that one name would be OJ Howard or Kenny Golladay.
Ooh,
I'd take Golladay personally.
I think I would too, which is not something I would have said.
Yeah, OJ Howard has got like 4 footballs thus far and just got a ton of points off of those.
I mean, he's had a really good first. I mean,
he hasn't actually like he's caught. It's been like.
Who cares if he's going to be catching like 30 yards per catch? I don't care what kind of volume he has.
It's not sustainable, and you know it. Although he is a big dude, so I guess tackling that man is probably very difficult. All right, let's move on. And actually, I just had a weird thought that's not on our script here, and that is, can we talk for a second about how like nobody of the rookies is really doing anything yet? Which is kind of shocking going into week 3.
Didn't Saquon have a couple?
No, okay. Other than the 101, you don't have anybody. You don't have anybody on this on the list of rookies doing really anything, and you have like Phillip Lindsay, who's not in anybody's rookie draft, like vaulting the board. It's kind of insane. I can't remember a year where like nobody's emerged out of that like second tier to be.
It's still early. Michelle will get some volume over the next few weeks.
Yep.
But I mean, you're right. I mean, DJ Moore will get some more volume, but there's been very little, targets and carries for the rookies early on.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple injuries too, but I mean, looking at it, it's like Penny, nope. Michelle, he's starting to come on. Chubb, nope. DJ Moore, okay, you caught a touchdown for a long throw. Like Ronald Jones, womp womp, and Royce Freeman looks to be vaulted. I mean, there's just it's just kind of an interest. I'm not saying that nobody's ever going to come on, and it's overreaction. Just a random thought of like nobody. Like
it's true.
No rookies have happened yet.
Which honestly will make this the greatest offseason in Dynasty history because all these guys are going to be buy lows and it's going to be amazing.
Yep, except for Ronald Jones. Do not buy low on Ronald Jones. Don't do that. All right,
I hate the Buccaneers.
Hey,
what's up? If you're going to bring in a running back, how about you vet him? How about like after McNichols last year, they were already on a short end.
Dude,
it's
and then Bishop Sankey.
Ronald.
Bishop Sankey.
Like, what are you doing? Man. I guess, but
I mean, at least they stole 2 second-round picks from the Bills, so that helped make up for it. So
all right, and Fitzmagic is like literally, I could not stop laughing yesterday at all of the presser like videos. So good. I'm assuming everybody who listens has already watched it, but if you haven't yet, go watch the presser. It is laugh out loud funny. Okay, let's go ahead and pivot to John Brown. And he's looked very, very good for the Ravens. Touchdown in each of the first 2 games. Looked very solid. Looks like a go-to. Looks like the old John Brown that used to have a first-round valuation in this dynasty communities before he fell off a cliff. So, what are we doing with Brown? What's his valuation now, and what are we doing with him?
If I have him, I'm starting him. I can tell you that. He's definitely a wide receiver 3 going forward for sure. And I won't say actively buying, but definitely throwing out some feelers for him, because this looks like it's going to be it looks like his role is pretty set as the deep threat on that team, and sort of getting some underneath routes as well. So I might give an early to mid second.
Yeah, and I think the early second will probably land you him, and then the mid second they tell you to go away. So
true.
But
yeah, I mean, if you bought him in the offseason, kudos to you, because his value was very, very depressed. And I know a lot. There were, and I don't have any names to name, but there was a lot of people on Twitter who were on that bandwagon.
Yeah. It was one of those scenarios where it was kind of harder to go out and buy him because there were big names like Harmon and the like, touting John Brown as the comeback story. And so it kind of just depends on the league you're in. And in more of the fishy leagues, I guess John Brown would be an easier buy. But just as far as his 2018 outlook, I think he's the wide receiver 1 there. I think that Crabtree is looking pretty old. And unfortunately, it's not the Jordan Lasley show quite yet. Coming soon, maybe 2019. But yeah, I think John Brown is a nice guy to put in your lineup right now and buy, even if you have a second to burn and can get him for that. I would do that. Now let's do our final player, and it is going to be a Russell and Nathan Dynasty Dudes extravaganza favorite. It's going to be Tyler Boyd. I recall the haters and losers, of which there are many, called Eric Bertzlaff.
Yeah, I thought you don't do victory laps. I saw this on your Twitter, and I was like, that is crap. He does do victory laps, and it's going to be on my podcast.
It was clear sarcasm. This is the Tyler Boyd victory lap. I think that I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna squash draft capital. I'm gonna say Tyler Boyd is the better dynasty asset than John Ross right now.
That's reasonably tough to argue with, because they both did nothing going into this season, and one looks significantly better than the other. So I'm not going to fight you on that one, but I'm not sure I would have fought you on that one previously either.
Yeah, it's not looking great for Ross. Shares, of which there are many for me. So I'm invested in both, but it does seem like Boyd is taking over that Sanu role from a few years ago, and he's going to get, we'll see.
He's looked sharp, and maybe was just a guy who needed a little bit of time to acclimate to the NFL speed, because he was such a stud doing everything in college, and then he came in and kind of just looked like a deer in headlights, looked like he didn't quite get it, and he's come out this year kind of swinging. And I mean, I can't disagree. As a Bengals fan, I've watched him, and he's looked the part of the real deal. So actually, and maybe with Boyd, there's still a lot of people who own him maybe that have been holding on to him for so long that maybe don't believe that he is in fact as good as maybe you believe he is, Nathan. What is, and you too, Russ, what is the valuation you guys are going out and buying Boyd for if you can?
I am pretty much sunk cost with Boyd. I'm not going out and buying.
Right, because you own him everywhere. It's like asking you what you'd pay for. Dang it, I forgot the Dolphins running back. What's his name?
Kenyon Drake.
It's asking you what you'd pay for him.
Yeah,
Jordan Lasley.
It's one of those things that I'm already pot committed that I don't need to add more shares. But if you're asking me what would I need to be offered to me for to pull a trigger, I'd take probably, if I saw a pick that was going to be like the 202 to 204 range, I'd sell.
Yeah, okay. Especially in the near future, his fantasy potential is capped with Green and Eifert and Mixon, and I do think they're going to still try to get Ross involved. So I think we're just looking at 202. I'm in. Let me.
But I'll be completely honest. I don't think we're getting anything near that. I'm just saying that's what I would need to sell.
No. Well, let me ask you, like, because if you're doing Boyd or Keelan Cole right now, are you on the Cole side of that?
Yeah, probably.
I'd have to be, I think, for now.
But only
many...
because it like with those type guys, I'm just going to take the guy who's scoring more points today, and Cole's just going to get more targets.
Yeah, that's probably another player that we should toss in at the end of this show. Is what do you do with Keelan Cole? Because he looked legit.
You take the 3 points.
Yeah, without Lee there, he's just gonna get a lot of targets, and that may not last forever. We've seen this many times with undrafted free agents, but his talent looks pretty stable, you know.
Yep, I agree. He looks like the real deal for sure. All right, well, I think that brings us to the end of the show. Tyler Boyd worth an early second. We think Keelan Cole's worth a late first now, maybe value-wise.
No. Okay, I don't think Tyler Boyd's worth an early second. I'm saying I would sell for an early second.
Okay, well, if he puts up another game like he did this last week, I think his value is going to start creeping there. Because people's eyebrows have raised now and given up on him. But it's such a good lesson on not giving up on like guys you assess to be very good and you drafted early on. Of like the number of people who dropped James Conner after year one, and they're like, well, I guess we can't keep him on my roster because it's dynasty and it looks like Le'Veon's set to take him over, and then blah blah blah. Sad. Don't draft a player if you're not going to be able to keep him on your roster for a while. All right, let's go ahead and wrap the show, guys. So again, want to thank our sponsor RotoQL. Want to thank Russell for being on the show. That's at Russell J Clay. He is on the Twitter machines there. Very good-looking, very sleeveless gentleman here. And you can also follow Nathan Powell at NPowellFF on Snapchat. Make sure you check that out. It's going to be...
Oh, good Lord. Nate Dog walks the dog. Coming to a Snapchat near you.
Yep. The Nathan Powell Minute. It's catching on. It's a thing on Twitter.
It won't be on Twitter.
I'll go ahead and put a poll on Twitter saying, should you follow Nathan Powell at NPowellFF for the Dynasty Minute on Snapchat? Yes or yes. That's what's gonna happen. Putting the poll up right now. Nathan's gonna be like, quit giving out my personal Snapchat, man. I'll kill you.
I mean, I don't put anything on there anyway, so
you really don't. If you want to see Nathan just look into a camera and say kadoosh, you're gonna love his Snapchat. It's really great.
If that's what you're looking for, you're gonna be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, you're gonna be pleasantly surprised. All right. Speaking of which, Nathan, now's the part of the show where we thank our listeners and we ask them to give us 5-star ratings and review, and then you look into the camera and you say,
kadoosh.
All right, we're out of here. Catch you guys next week.
So this might be the most random. I gotta stop the podcast.